Good afternoon, this is Chaplain Kenneth, and you're watching Time with Chaplain Ken. I want to thank everybody for watching my last the video that I did last time. Got some good response. I also had some questions about doing one of these live so that you guys can post questions as we go along, and I can answer them, kind of on the fly. Think about it. So thanks for coming and watching, and I'm glad that you're here with me tonight, and I hope that we can learn something on this together. We're continuing our book study. It's on this book. Say, Get Out of Your Own Way. It's a very good book. You can find it at the Barnes & Noble. I highly suggest you pick it up because there's good practical information on there. Okay. In chapter 1, we're looking at the title, and it says Chasing After Love. Chasing After Love and Approval from a Parent. The author writes, and I agree, a lot of people seek therapy, and a lot of times the problems stem from the home life with the dysfunction in the relationship between a child and a parent. Conflicts with moms and dads cause many problems that tend to ingrain themselves in an individual and perpetuate themselves as the family goes on and on. And so today we're going to look at that. He begins by saying something that's pretty funny in the book. Let me read it to you, because he says it better than I do. He says, a patient of mine told her mother she was seeking therapy. Terrific, sniffed the mother. He'll try to convince you that you hate me. No, Mom, replied my patient. I knew that going in. He's trying to convince me that I love you. Wow, that is so real. So we're going to look into some of the dynamics that take place in a family that tends to contribute to self-defeating behaviors. And so today we're going to look at what happens when a parent is a little bit off, perhaps, and along with the child, because it always takes two to tango, and how the two dynamics interact and interplay with one another. And we don't even realize it. We only know the negative consequences, but we rarely see its effect on us as individuals. So today, like I said before, please pay attention to yourself. Look at your own life and look at your own experience. Don't think of the person across the street or the other family members. Think of you and see where you fit in this scenario, if at all. You may not. You may have gotten it figured out. But when a parent deprives their child of love and approval, that child usually ends up growing up with a lot of anger. Displaced anger, just anger all around, because they're not getting the approval and the love they need from their parents. If their parents, if a child believes that the parents don't understand them, then they'll tend to be frustrated and not understand why, or see that their parents are indifferent to them and their plight, because they just don't understand you as a child. And so if you're frustrated at your parents and this is the cause, it could be because they don't understand you, or you think they don't understand you. A lot of times and he points this out in the book, a lot of times parents don't even realize when you're frustrated and what's going on with you as a child when you're growing up, and they just can't figure it out. A lot of parents, and you're probably one of them, are looking at your kid going, God, what is wrong with that kid? Without looking at to see how they are contributing to the dynamic. And so we always tend to do that. But like I said, pay attention to yourself. Look at you. It's hard to I know it's hard because we're not raised that way. We always tend to look at the others and try to figure them out and realize, okay, they're broken, they're fixed, they're good, they're unhealthy, and it's always about them. It's never about us. So again, let me challenge you to look at yourself. Case in point, I was doing a lecture in a treatment setting, not a drug treatment setting. This was in a behavioral health setting, and the patients were asking me questions about relationships, and I kept on going back to them and how they were contributing to the mess and the problems. Because the idea is this: we don't have the power to change anybody, you and I. So the only person we can change is ourselves, with a lot of work, and by allowing God into the picture, He begins to change us. And so I did this, and there were a number of questions, and one guy raised his hand and said, yeah, and he goes, Chap, Is it ever about the other person? Because they were all beginning to realize, well, yeah, you're right. I mean, it is me, but isn't it about them too? It's a, well, yeah, yes and no. Sometimes it is, but really, what can you do about them? How can you change them? It's hard enough to change yourself. It's hard enough to figure out why you do the things you do. So when you find out, what you have to do, and you change the equation, at least on your end, you change the dynamic between you and the other person. And then there's the beginning of an opportunity to heal, perhaps. And that's what this chapter brought out as well. But we'll get into that here in a minute. A child often resents his parents for having too much control in their lives. And they live with a resentment because they don't have any freedom. They don't feel the freedom that they think they're supposed to have. Or they can build a resentment because a parent is indifferent and just let them do whatever they want to do. Kind of tricky, isn't it? So you look and realize, all right, if I'm feeling these things, if I'm feeling the anger, if I have the frustration, if I've been living with resentment over what my parent has done or what I perceive my parent to be doing, this chapter is about getting your mind right and clearing up your side of the road. Like they say in treatment, cleaning up my side of the street, because that other side of the street belongs to somebody else, and I can't go clean their street. I can only clean up mine. And so when we focus on us and we look at ourselves, then yeah, we can begin to make a change in the dynamic. So trying to get blood from a turnip is what we often try to do sometimes in relationships, where we try to get the other person to behave the way we think they ought to be. Or we're trying to get them to do what they're supposed to be doing, or at least what we think they're supposed to be doing, in order to make this relationship a good one. So the author points out that, a parent who lives and is raising you the way they are is because of the way they were raised. If you're looking for love and respect and kindness and compassion and understanding and caring from a parent who never received it, you're trying to get blood from a turnip. Beating a dead horse? Yeah, that's another way of saying it. So, yeah, if they don't have that, then we get frustrated. So, changing our expectations of reality into a more realistic level can help us to manage, to cope with what's happening in our world around us. If our expectations are not realistic towards our parents. Let's say, for instance, you took some time to get some therapy and you begin to learn that we are all products of our own homes. And if our parents were faulty, it's probably because their home wasn't right. And they're just mimicking what they saw. Or they just didn't learn or pick up the teachings of their parents. Or they just didn't have any teachings from their former parents. And so we're trying to see them to get it right. Yeah, we may be asking too much, because it's not realistic that they would know, what the deal is. Because unless, we go through therapy, we rarely understand what's going on in a home. It's very difficult to understand that. So continuing to try leads to your conclusion that they don't love you, right? You're trying to get love from your family member who was brought up in a way where love was not expressed. And it's not malicious, it's just the way they were brought up. They do love you, but they never say it. They do love you, but they never hold you. They do love you, but they never sit and listen to you without trying to fix everything. They can love you by feeding you, by putting clothes on your back, by getting a home over your head, making sure it's cool in the summer, warm in the winter, providing all those necessary things that a loving parent provides. And for them, that's showing you love. But what you need, perhaps, maybe something more emotional, something more on the emotional level and the heart level from your parent, and they don't know how to do it. So when you begin to realize that perhaps your parents were never taught, how can they teach you? You begin to have a little bit more grace. So when you understand their upbringing, you begin to understand why they were the way they were. When I grew up with my brothers and sister, ooh, she sees this one sister, there was not that touchy-feely stuff going on from my dad, and so we never got it from my dad. And I began to realize after much therapy on my own and figuring out, why I was the way I was, I picked up some things from him that I just didn't like, didn't understand. So when I realized that, I began to realize why my dad was the way he was. He never had a father figure in his life to teach him anything about being a man, being a dad, how to show love, and like in the Hispanic culture we say cariño. Cariño to your kids. We never got that. We did it from my mom. Mom gave it to us. But we never got it from Dad. And when Dad can't do that does change the dynamic a little bit. So when I began to understand that my dad's history was pretty brutal and pretty harsh, and he had to live out in the streets and do things to survive and be on his own, that's what he passed on. The toughness, the hardness, even the cruelty. I'm going to be vulnerable with you. I remember one time my kids were misbehaving. And I looked at my son, and I asked him to explain himself, and of course, like I used to do, it would be mostly one-sided. I'd be doing most of the talking. And I asked that question, do you understand? And he said, yeah. Here's the thing. When he said yeah, I snapped. Immediately I went to, what do you mean yeah? And I gave him that look, and I gave him that tone, and as soon as the words came out of my mouth, and I looked into his eyes, and I can see the fear in his eyes, I saw myself as a little child when my dad did the same exact thing. What do you mean, yeah? It was yes, sir. No, sir. And we put our heads down. And he did the exact same thing. And that thing came out so smooth and so slick, like I had been saying it all my life. And when my son put his head down, I went inside. I gasped inside, and I thought to myself, holy cow. Where did that come from? And he stood there looking at me, and I looked at him. It shocked me as much as it shocked him. And I said, hey man, don't ever call me sir. You call me dad, okay? And he shook his head yes, and I said, get out of here and go play. And I had to sit back and think and process that. And I thought to myself, holy cow, what else did I pick up from my old man? We do this. We learn from these experiences, and we take on those things, and we just continue to pass them on and on to the next generation, and so on and so forth, unless we honestly come to make a difference in our own experience, in our own lives, so that the dynamic can change and the process can change. So there's a need to break the cycle so it doesn't perpetuate. So the author points this out, and he kind of puts it in a way that's interesting. He says, you got to give to your parents what they never got from their parents. So in other words, you need to be your own grandfather. You need to supply to your parent what they never got from their parents. You need to mimic the love or display the love to them that you never got, the approval that you never got, that they never got. And when you can do that, you begin to change some things. He has a story in his book where a guy is taking care of his dad who's gotten ill, and his dad was always harsh. And this is a guy who's well accomplished. He is celebrating his dad's birthday. He's taking care of his dad because he can't take care of himself anymore. And he helps him dress, and his dad's putting his shoes on. He's taking the time to wrestle around with the shoelaces, and he finally gets it. And his son said, hey, good job, Dad. You did good. And his dad, for the first time, told him, thanks. So did you, son. You're a good son. Blew his mind. First time he had ever heard that. First time he'd ever experienced that from his really hard dad. And it all happened because he was willing and vulnerable enough to share the same thing with his dad. To show him the love and the acceptance that he never got. See, because if his dad never learned how to get that from his parents, how was he going to pass that on to his kid? Well, it just wasn't going to, until somebody did that and showed him how to do that. So by tapping into their needs, you just may free them to give you what you need by telling your parents that they did a good job. Maybe they'll reciprocate and learn how to do that with you too. This is not the same as parenting your parents. You guys that go through Al-Anon, or you're an adult child of an alcoholic, this is not what that is, where you become the parent of the house because mom or dad are too high to do anything and be responsible enough. And so, no, this is not doing the same thing. This is giving love without any expectation of return. Like my wife likes to say, without being attached to the outcome. Showing the love that they never got, so that they can feel that as well. And perhaps maybe then they can get that and realize that they need to do the same with you. And it opens up the opportunities for that to happen. So no, this is not the same as parenting your parent. That's quite unhealthy. Al-Anoners and 12-steppers, they know that. And so, yeah, if our home is dysfunctional and we're the ones cooking and cleaning and getting the kids off to school and you're the older brother or older sister, yeah, that's not healthy. That's not what I'm talking about. But it is modeling the love and the understanding and the caring and the grace to our parents so that they can see what it looks like and maybe reciprocate in turn. So if here's another scenario. So let's say a father who's perfectionist and demanding perfection, and the son always tries to please that father. Gets all A's, but the only thing he notices is the one B that he got. That's happened to me. All A's, but one B. Oh, what'd you get the B for? Oh, I don't know, Dad. I must have missed a question on a test or something. Blows out my whole work, and I couldn't hear. I couldn't hear anything. Here's another true story. I remember calling home one day. It was a challenge I heard in the sermon. Call home, tell your parents you love them, tell them you care about them, and thank them for everything that they did. Because our parents do sacrifice. They really did. They did sacrifice quite a bit. So I called my mom, told her, she started crying, gave the phone to my dad, told my dad, same thing. Now, Dad was never, it was not a healthy home I grew up in. And so the minute I told him, he started telling me everything I was doing wrong in my life. I was like, ugh, okay. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I said, all right, Dad, I got to do some homework. It was worth a try. But sometimes it works, but just sometimes you got to keep doing it. You got to do it without being attached to the outcome. So this is other scenario. He gets all A's but one B, and that the B is noticed. He's on the football team, but he's not the captain. Became very successful in life, but Dad was never really happy. Very successful, but I'm telling you, extremely successful. Now, Dad has passed away many years, and the son is still trying to please his dad, the ghost of his dad, the memory of his dad. What are the chances of getting to a place where you're satisfied? Well, how do you know when you got there? Especially when the parent is already passed. This is how tricky it gets. Very tricky. He was never good enough. He never got to hear the words from his dad, and still tried to please him even after like I said, the father passed away. So what do you think are the chances of him passing that on to his children? Passing on what he's learned from his dad to his children. I mean, he never got to hear, though, yes, son, you did a great job. And this guy was accomplished. Very accomplished. He may become just distant from his children, or he may become so involved that he becomes over-controlling. Because that's the tendency. We experience these things, and we tend to either do one or the other, because we often live in extreme thinking. One or the other. It's hard for us to find that balance somewhere in the middle, where it's comfortable, where it's healthy, where it's appropriate, and it tends to work. We're either full on or full off. You guys in addiction know what I'm talking about. Never any kind of balance. Hot or cold. Right or wrong. Good or bad. Evil or holy. One of the two. Yeah. And I use those evil or holy because it even comes into the church. So you need to be aware of what's going on with you and how you are in your different settings, because it affects people around you. These self-defeating behaviors that happen because of what we've been through in our own experiences in life. So you can either become distant from your kids because you never got it from your parents, and you said, just forget it, I'm done, I ain't going to try. That's one extreme. Or you become the helicopter parent, and you're enmeshed with your kids, and you're trying to control your kids, and you're trying to help them, to show them, to teach them, because you want to pass your values on, but you do it to an extreme, and it becomes very unhealthy, and your kids begin to push you away. That can happen. So find that balance somewhere in the middle that seems to work and seems to help. Yeah. The author says that it takes courage to give what you've never received without being attached to the outcome. That's grace. That's loving without expecting in return. That's forgiving without expecting the forgiveness to be returned. Yeah, that's giving without asking, having your other hand out, to get something in return as well. That's cutting the neighbor's yard without any thought of them coming over and giving you, I don't know, pie or cake or something in return. It's not that. It's just doing so that you can do it, so that you can give, so that you can show. That takes courage, and that takes a little bit of you getting out of your way, which is what the title of the book is. A great title. So a little bit of you getting out of your way, getting your ego out of the way, getting your pride out of the way, getting your machismo out of the way. Yes, I said the word machismo because I know that's out there. And by the way, that's not just a Hispanic thing. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. I've met people from all sorts of cultures that machismo thing is still there. Like, I'm the man, I'm in control of that. Blah. Yeah, you got to get that out of the way in order for you to be healthy. So he spoke with somebody who gave him a word of advice about going through life in such a way. And the person said, "What eats away at me is not the love I didn't get from my mother. It's not the love I didn't get, but the love I never got to give away because I was so angry." How many of y'all are going, that's a good one, isn't it? It's pretty deep. Let me say it again. What eats away at me is not the love I didn't get from my mother, but the love I never got to give away because I was so angry. Boy, ain't that the truth. Ain't that the truth? Yeah. How many of us are doing that? We're so closed in. We are so overprotective of ourselves. We put ourselves in a box to protect ourselves, and we feel comfortable in that box thinking everything is perfect now, when the reality is we're not receiving love, we're not giving love, we're not experiencing the relationships that we're supposed to have to their fullest, and we're flitting away those relationships that we have that can be more fruitful. And we're passing on to the next generation how to close ourselves in, how to protect ourselves and shun the world and shield ourselves. And we're passing that on instead of teaching our children and our progeny how to express that love in a loving way, to pass on something good for a change. And recognizing that it's all because of our past. See, like I said once before in the previous video with you guys, we can forget our past, but our past won't forget us. It'll come back to haunt us over and over and over until we learn that lesson. So we think we're running from our history and we're creating a new world for ourselves. Chances are you're dragging the same old junk. You're fortifying yourself against that junk that you've been through. And when you try to avoid something, this is how avoidance behavior works. When you try to avoid something for so long, all you're thinking of is what you need to avoid, and you're never experiencing anything new. Your whole world is still being controlled by what you're trying to avoid. Your whole schema of living, your whole thought patterns, everything that you're doing in your experience in life, it's all because of that stuff in your history that you think you've gotten away from, but you haven't, because it's still directing you and making you into a person that it's unrecognizable to your loved ones around you. So stop and think about it. Stop and think about it. What eats away at me most is not the love I didn't get from my mother, but the love I never got to give away because I was so angry at my past. If there's anything that you can do in your history is to take the time to work through that old junk, put it in its perspective, and then do something different. And here's some things that you can do. Think of something that you never received from one of your parents. and that you still feel you still need. And the most common one is going to be pride, love, comfort, acceptance, things you never got from your parents. Understanding, the patience, all it could be a whole bunch of things, but figure out what that one thing is. And then from your knowledge of your family, determine whether your parent is likely to have received it from his or her parents. Think about it. If you can think about it, that they never got it, you begin to realize how sad it must be for your parent to not be able to get past that and go through life with damaged relationships with their children. It's hard on them too, not just on you, but them too. Not knowing how to fix something like that, perhaps even seeing it take place. That the kids don't come around, they don't call when it's a birthday, they don't come over when it's Christmas, and you become estranged from your family. That hurts. Hurts you. It hurt me. Only you can imagine what it's doing to my parent. So you can stop and realize, what? I don't have time to be angry. Life is way too short to be bitter and angry and overprotective over things that aren't happening anymore. And so I begin to look at things differently and realize, what? I need to do something different in order to change this dynamic. I can change me. Can't change anybody else, but at least I can change me. And God can use that to change the relationship to the better. And then try to imagine a specific situation which you can sincerely give your parent and visualize yourself doing so. Give to your parent what they didn't get. Like, I'm proud of you. Something that they may be missing. And this may take for you to sit down and talk to your parents in a way that you never talked about them. Talk to them before. And learn from them and try to understand where they're coming from. Don't counsel your parents. Do not do that. I'm not talking about counseling your parents. No. Do not counsel your family. But understand where they're coming from. It takes a little bit to say, yeah, okay, I can see why that is the way it is. Yeah, for heaven's sake, don't counsel your family. They'll pick up on it and they'll jump you and say, who do you think you are? Then you're going to cause a whole bunch of problems. But but listen and try to pay attention to what's going on around you. Figure out why people are perhaps maybe the way they are. What are they looking for? What do they need? Seek opportunities to offer what you need to your parents, and don't be surprised if both you are moved and they are moved to the point of tears. Yeah, if a parent is very controlling, chances are that they've been through a situation in their life where they didn't want the same thing to happen to you, and that you never knew about it. And let's say you find out what that is, and you realize how scared and broken they are, and how much they love you and they want to protect you. And it's all based out of wanting to take care of you, but maybe you can see how it hurts. So maybe then you can begin to mend the wounds and change the dynamic. But it only happens with you. I mean, it can only happen with you. If you're watching these videos and you're learning for the first time, yeah, there's some stuff that I'm lacking. Maybe there's something there that I need to start looking at. Find a good chaplain, counselor, minister that knows how to do these things, and sit down and talk with them to figure out what it is that's going on with you, so that perhaps maybe you can make the changes you need to make in your own life. Because like I said, we can only clean up our own side of the street. And when you do that, you begin to make changes in all your other relationships as well. You may get that look of, hey, what's going on with you, man? Who are you, and what's happened to the old you? You'll get that. I've experienced that. So yeah, because the changes that happen, they need to happen with us first before they can change anywhere else. So like those guys that I was sharing with in treatment, in behavioral health, yes. Sometimes it is about other people, but there's not anything you can do about it. It is mostly about us and how we respond to what's going on around us can make a big difference in our lives. It can make a difference in our relationships, at home, at work, at church. It can make a difference in our relationship with God even, because 9 times out of 10, we'll approach God in the way that we approached a parent, especially a father. We'll look at God at the way we used to look at our parent. Case in point for me. I listened to my dad because I didn't want to get beat. I didn't want to get yelled at. I didn't want to get in trouble. I didn't want anything to happen. So how do you think my relationship with God went when I first started to believe? Yeah, the same way. I did the same thing. I want to follow God with all my heart, soul, and might because I don't want to go to hell. What kind of motivation is that? Because I didn't want to get in trouble. And then I began to learn a little bit more, and it changed, and I changed. My perspective changed. God didn't present himself to me in a way that he's going to throw me in a pit. He began to present himself to me as a father of love, and I began to let that change me and see him in a different light than I did before. And I began to look at my relationships the same way, with the same grace and love that God has for me, and it began to change for the better. A lot of tenderness and mercy in my heart for a lot of people, because now I know, we all have gone through a whole lot. All of us have. A lot of painful stuff. Yeah. In my counseling practice with my wife and in behavioral health practice, yes. I've heard the stories. I know we've all been there. And there's hope. There's a solution to all of this. And perhaps the first step that we can take with our parent is if we're looking for something they cannot give, then maybe we should give to them what they never received and see what that does for a change. Becoming their grandparent. Interesting way of thinking about it. Not parenting your parents, but giving them the love that they never got, perhaps, or the understanding, or the patience, or the caring, or whatever it is that you come to understand. Okay? All right. Let's try that in the next week and see what happens. Thank you guys for joining me. Thank you for watching. Please don't hesitate to like and share and give to your other friends. This is free therapy if you want to think of it that way, and I'm not in charge of thing. So yeah, if you have a comment or any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know and in the message, and I'll try to respond when I can. Okay? Thank you. God bless you. Remember, please pay attention to yourself. God loves you, so do I. Bye-bye.